reflections on the 40th and 20th anniversaries of Lynn Pearson's Goodbye, I Love You and Facing East. We planned this session before Lynn passed away 2 nights ago. And so it's going to be tough to get through this. I'm sure we're going to be even more emotional than we otherwise would have been. Lynn will be with us, though, in that I was with her 2 weeks ago and interviewed her and got clips of her speaking about these two works in anticipation of sharing them with you here in this session. So Lynn will be speaking to you today through these recordings. My name is Barbara Jones-Brown. I'm the director of Signature Books Publishing, and it has been one of the, it's gonna be hard to get through this session. It has been one of the great honors and privileges of my life to be working with Lynn to publish the last 4 books that she would ever publish, titled The Diaries of Lynn Pearson, volumes 1 through 4. And she came to us 2 years ago at Signature and asked us to publish these diaries. And I was just with her again 2 weeks ago, and she was thrilled to have these 2 first volumes out. We have signed We have signed copies of those, signed by Lynn in the back of the room and at our Signature Books table at the end of this session. And also I encourage you to support local bookstores and support Benchmark Books, who also has copies as well. We'll also have Lynn reading excerpts from these diaries. I now want to introduce my distinguished fellow panelists. Connell O'Donovan is on the board of the Mildred Berriman Institute for LGBTIQ2S+ Utah History and has known Lynn Pearson since 1987. After devouring Goodbye, I Love You in a couple of days, he cold called Lynn from Salt Lake, suicidal and pleading for help. They have remained beloved friends ever since, have broken bread together in her home, and even met with the general authority together in the aftermath of California's anti-gay Prop 8. Connell has often said that Goodbye, I Love You is the single most important event in the history of homosexuality and Mormonism. Jerry Rapier has served as artistic director of Plan B Theater since 2000. He is the first person of color to lead a professional arts organization in Utah history and has directed more than 40 productions for the company. The greatest honor of his professional life was developing and directing the original production of Lynn Pearson's Facing East. He and Plan B Theater are reviving the play this fall to commemorate its 20th anniversary, and how appropriate that that's happening. I know Lynn was so excited about this. As editor of Dialogue, a journal of Mormon thought, 50 years ago, Bob Reese published the journal's first personal essay known to be written by a gay Mormon. Like Pearson, his close friend and colleague of more than 3 decades, Bob has been an ally for LGBTQ people, speaking publicly, publishing articles, essays, reviews, and commentaries, and actively advocating for LGBTQ rights generally, and in the Latter-day Saint community specifically. His newest book, Imagining and Reimagining the Restoration, includes a chapter titled, Opening Our Hearts, Homes, and Chapels to Our LGBTQ Members. So, again, we planned this session before Lynn passed, but we wanted to do this session honoring these 2 landmark anniversaries of these landmark works. I cannot believe it's been 40 years since Goodbye, I Love You came out, but we're going to start by talking about that work. Connell, could you just briefly describe what the book is about, Goodbye, I Love You?
It's Carolyn's story of her journey meeting her husband Gerald at BYU. They're falling in love, having children, his coming out. They're moving to the Bay Area so that he could continue his coming out journey there. Their divorce, him contracting HIV, getting really sick, and her inviting him back into their home so she could care for him until his death. Tough.
We'll talk about each of your experiences after reading it. But first, I want to play a clip of Carol Lynn talking about her memories of writing the book. Kind of like, see, you have, is that an original copy there? Could you hold that up for everyone to see?
My original battered copy.
Wow.
that she signed for me with a dedication that's really lovely.
Incredible. Okay, now we'll have Carol Lynn. Again, this is just 2 weeks ago, remembering her writing of Goodbye, I Love You.
I don't remember when I decided that I was going to write that book, but somehow or other, I did come to the conclusion that was a story that lots of people could benefit from. So, given the fact that I was already an established writer, given the fact that I had all that experience with my gay husband and subsequently with a lot of other gay people, I thought, well, this seems to be something that I am called to do. So I just wrote, Goodbye, I Love You, piece by piece, telling the story as it happened. And it did. It changed the lives of a lot of people. I still have letters that I've saved from gay men who had planned their suicide. And when they read that book, they thought, I need to be here. I deserve to be here. I deserve to have my life the way that I am.
Connell, you were one of those gay young men that she's talking about. Do you want to share your experience of discovering the book, reading it, and reaching out to Carolyn?
In the interest of time, I mean, we pretty much covered it in the introduction. It just, I was coming out in '85. I was a toxic mess and so full of self-hatred, self-loathing, profound sense of unworthiness to even be alive. And reading the book, there were so many similarities with Gerald. I could see myself in Gerald so much, and it just was really moving. In fact, I also married a woman named Carolyn. Yeah, anyway, it was just really intense, and I had been suicidal probably since I was 12, off and on, and at this point, 86, 87, I was really in a really bad place. And looked her up in the phone book. In case you don't know what a phone book is. That's for you, Oscar. I looked her up in the phone book, cold called her, and just bawled on the phone with her for 2 hours. And then she came to Salt Lake City with her daughter Emily to put Emily into BYU. And so I got to meet them both, and then we just have remained friends since.
We have a picture of you with Carolyn up here.
Yep.
Is that the same trip, or?
Oh no, this is the 2004 Sunstone West Symposium.
Okay.
I think in Cupertino or or something.
Right.
But,
So another time Carolyn
yeah,
spoke in.
we were on a panel about gay morbid suicides, and yeah, that was really intense. So.
Thank you, Connell. Jerry, can you share your experience with finding, when did you encounter Goodbye, I Love You and Carolyn Pearson?
Well, I was in, the year the book was published, I encountered it between my freshman and sophomore year of high school. And I grew up in a little tiny rural town that, well, we lived 10 miles out of town. The closest town is Duncan, Arizona, which is about 40 miles from Thatcher, Arizona. A lot of Mormon folks know where that is. About as remote as one could be. But my aunt, Janice, ran the town library, and she had ordered a copy of Goodbye, I Love You. And so ironically, I checked that and Harvey Fierstein's Torch Song trilogy out at the same time. I learned a lot as a young, gay, closeted kid that summer reading those books. But I felt it helped me understand who I was. And then I just reread the book about 2 weeks ago, preparing to remount Facing East. I gave everyone in the cast a copy and reread it myself, and what I realized I didn't see in it the first time, because I was hyper-focused on my experience as a young gay kid, was the incredible way Carolyn drew the parallels between her experience as the wife of a gay man and her struggle to elevate the stature of women within the church, and how those things were intertwined. And I, as an older person now, that's what rose to the top for me this time through, is the strength that she had and how openly she was sharing such radical ideas. It wasn't the embrace of her gay husband was only one of the radical ideas in the book.
Thank you, Jerry. I also encountered Goodbye, I Love You, this copy here, the same version, when I was a teenager. And this ties in nicely to what you just said, because it influenced me in 2 ways. And I'm going to read from my journal. I brought my journal, and I recorded on January 14th, 1987, the following. I decided today that I want to be a writer. I want to start out in journalism, maybe magazine journalism, then move on to short stories, articles, and books. I don't know if I can do it, but it's a dream I have. I've had this dream for a long time, but I've just been too afraid to pursue it. Why am I afraid to try? I don't know. But I've been reading a book by an author I admire and respect, Lynn Pearson. And I suddenly realized she started out just like me. She had to realize her dream just like me. And she was probably afraid also, but she did it, and so can I. So I didn't mention what book I was reading, but it was Goodbye, I Love You, and it influenced me in 2 ways. One, as a young girl who was afraid to pursue her dreams, but seeing a woman who had pursued her dreams and been so effective in her writing. And it was also, Goodbye, I Love You was the first influence on me that led to me eventually becoming an LGBTQ ally. This man right here was another influence, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I went on to do all of those things I wrote as a teenager that I wanted to do, and have now published my first book. And this is a picture of me with Carolyn holding Goodbye, I Love You, that initial book, and then my book that I published when I visited her about a year ago. Bob, do you want to talk about Goodbye, I Love You, your experience with it?
I remember reading Goodbye, I Love You, and being struck by the power of those 2 messages, goodbye and I love you. And I read it very close to the time I was called to be bishop of the Los Angeles First or Singles Ward. Your friend was a member of that ward. And I realized very quickly that I had a responsibility for these young adults and being a father of a number of young adults right at the same time, as my kids were also in my ward, I just felt extremely humble, but also excited. And as soon as I made the decision that I would hold, I hardly knew anyone on the board, so I would hold 15-minute interviews with everyone, and my essential response was, is there anything that hasn't been resolved in your life? If there is, let's get it behind us, and let's start with a fresh news. And in that process, I found people who were carrying the burden that so many people carried. And Carol Lynn's book inspired us in that ward to not say goodbye, I love you, but hello, we welcome you, and we love you. And that is what happened in that ward, and I'm very grateful for the gay and lesbian and bisexual members of my ward who taught me how to be a better Christian, how to be a better bishop, how to be a better friend. Very quick, got a call one day from a man who lived in Santa Barbara. He said, my brother just moved into your ward and he's dying of AIDS. Would you go see him? I said, of course. So I went to see Brad Murdoch and welcomed him to church. He said, well, I can't come to church, can I? I said, of course you could come. And this is the ward you're welcome to. He said, well, I'm this age. And I said, you're welcome. And he was a musician who'd been in the first Saturday's Warriors cast. My wife, who was director of the ward choir, brought him in. He became just this wonderful member of our ward, and he taught and we welcomed the teaching that he and other people were able to give. So it was a wonderful time, and that really began was really now my 50-year ministry among LGBT people. That was begun with the essay I published when I was editor of Dialogue, but that really became full flowering and hasn't ended in that flowering sense. And so much of it was what Carol Lynn both taught and what she modeled.
I was a young returned missionary and recent BYU grad when I moved into Bob's ward, the LA Singles ward. And this was the next influence that led me to become an ally. I was watching Bob's example as I was just sitting in the audience and watching how you welcomed the gay, the queer members of our ward, and I wanted to be like you. I did not know until we started planning this session that you had recently just read Goodbye, I Love You Too, and that had been an influence on you. Bob called me to be the Relief Society president, so we had the honor of working together to bless people in the ward together.
You did a beautiful job.
I wanted to play now Carolyn, something that she shared about the book. Just give me a moment here. In this, she talks about the general authorities of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, their reaction to Goodbye, I Love You.
And I remember I signed a copy to every general copy. And I received a very good response. I think there were only a couple of stories that I heard that one of the brethren said, why is she doing this? Why can't she just stick to poetry?
Listen her giggle at that.
But I believe I still have letters probably in my diaries I've written some of the responses that I received from several general authorities who were very pleased and grateful to be, for doing what they could not do. Many of them had gay children or, gay relatives. But being in their position, they could not make any kind of statements like I was able to make.
Kind of a surprising reaction. 40 years ago this month, Lynn Pearson spoke at this venue at Sunstone magazine about this new book she had just published, Goodbye, I Love You. I want to read the entry that she made in her diaries. Well, she's going to read it for you. This entry was made on August 31st, 1986, so again, 40 years ago. And here's what she wrote about presenting at Sunstone Symposium about Goodbye, I Love You.
Friday evening was my talk at the Sunstone Symposium. I had, of course, been looking forward to it with enormous anticipation. There was a large crowd. They opened the doors connecting 3 ballrooms. I'm sure at least 1,500 people were there. I had a firm outline, but did not read my talk. I do not believe in reading talks. The response was better than anything I could have hoped for. I received a standing ovation. There was a good spirit in the hall. I succeeded in what I wanted to do, which was to cultivate understanding and avoid divisiveness. After I finished, I entertained questions. And the good spirit continued. A lot of gratitude was expressed, and a lot of reaching out was done. My dear brother Donald gave a beautiful closing prayer. The whole thing could not have been more thrilling. My friend and visiting teaching companion, Ann Moss, was there, and told me that Jerry Cahill, church spokesman, was at my talk. Armand Moss had lunched with someone at the church offices who had been told that Cahill was appointed to see to it that I had the broadest possible latitude to do what I wanted to do, as they felt there would be a lot of good come from this in the long run. I sold nearly 400 books at my table at the Sunstone Symposium. So now I have enough money to pay the end of the month's bills. And for that, I am very grateful.
Were any of you in the audience that day? Okay, see one person. One person who was one of the 400 people who bought a copy of that book and who was in the audience was historian D. Michael Quinn. And he wrote about being at this event in his diary, which is in the book published by Signature called Chosen Path. And I've asked Connell to read, we read the date and then the entry, Connell, of D. Michael Quinn.
Yes.
Oh, and let me introduce too, D. Michael Quinn had just recently started to come out and just recently divorced from his wife, and they also had 4 children, like Carolyn and Jill.
So 21st August, 1986. This day, I listened to a riveting presentation at Sunstone Symposium by LDS poet, author, Lynn Pearson as she talks so frankly and lovingly about her marriage to a gay man. I bought the book and read it nonstop, often in tears. More than the sadness of her ex-husband's homosexual struggle and AIDS death, it was incredibly painful to read her perspective of living in a gay-straight marriage. It was an all too real echo of Jan's life with me, despite my homosexual celibacy. You want the microphone?
So as I was preparing this, I happened to look on the opposing page of this entry, and again, Mike has recently divorced from his wife, but he wrote this. One evening, I traveled from Salt Lake to Provo with a recently married couple and Maxine Hanks to join other students at BYU to see a movie by Russian filmmaker Tarkovsky. On the trip back, Connell and I quietly kissed in the back of the van, while Maxine and the husband and wife chatted in front. This was my first gay kiss. Connell didn't know that until we published this. You didn't know you were his first gay kiss, because when I told you, you were like, oh, I was?
So I was actually in Mike's ward in the Avenues when all of this was going on. And he helped ordain me an elder in 1979, so I'd known him for quite a while. Yeah, that was fun, making out in the back of the van.
Okay, let's move on now and talk about Facing East, the play that Carolyn wrote and was first produced at Plan B Theater in 2006. Jerry, could you briefly describe what the play is about for us?
Sure. Facing East is about a couple named Alex and Ruth, and they are the quintessential perfect Mormon couple, at least from the outside. They exude what it means to be everything that the faith requires, but they have a gay son, and they couldn't accept him, and he commits suicide right before the action of the play begins. And the play is set after the service at his gravesite. And Alex, the father, is completely unhappy with how the funeral went, because he felt like it was filled with lies and that they need to restage the funeral then and there in the moment and tell the truth about their son. Ruth is unable to come around to this. She can't see the need for, she's relieved in a way that her son is gone. And what they have never done is meet. Their son's name is Andrew. They've never met Andrew's partner, Marcus. And Marcus has waited till he thinks everyone is gone to pay his respects, because of course he wasn't invited to the funeral. He arrives, and they're still there, and it's their first meeting. Ruth can't understand what is happening, and Alex realizes instantly that the only way they can ever truly know their son is to get to know Marcus. One of the beautiful things about the play was Carolyn wanted to create a different viewpoint of religious acceptance of gay children. Most people have a story that says their mom figured it out first, and child and mother together bring the father around. And she wanted to turn that trope on its head and have the father be the one leading the way, which led to some pretty surprising twists and turns in the play, and also in the way we rehearsed it, staged it, the way it was received as we produced it.
Thank you, Jerry. I recorded Carolyn reading her diary entry about writing Facing East, and in it she talks about Bruce Bastian,
And for those of you who don't know Bruce Bastian, who he was a co-founder of WordPerfect. And some of you maybe are too young to even remember what WordPerfect was, but
The superior product, Word.
But anyways, his doing that made him a multimillionaire. And he read Goodbye, I Love You. He was a gay, closeted father of 4 children. And he read Goodbye, I Love You and reached out to Carolyn about it, and they become fast friends. So in this entry, she's writing to Bruce Bastian about an idea she has for a play she wants to write.
Do you have a date on this? I don't.
She reads it.
Oh,
May 23rd, 2005. From my diary. Last night I wrote Bruce Bastian this letter via email. Dear Bruce, I am feeling strongly that I have another calling to write something on a theme that you and I are both committed to, homosexuality and the Mormon Church. I want to write a play that is the story of an LDS family whose gay son has just committed suicide. I have been writing this in my head for some time and believe I have a powerful and effective story. It will be both an indictment and an invitation for Mormons to once again become pioneers and move into unknown territory. My title is Facing East, and it examines what our true responsibilities to each other are. Something that keeps me from sitting down and actually writing is that I am under a strong need to use my time in ways that are financially productive. I wish that were not the case, but it is. Therefore, it has occurred to me to inquire if you or your foundation would be willing to commission this piece. A commission of $10,000 would give me the freedom to spend the 2 or 3 months that I need to create the play. Jerry Rapier of Plan B Theater in Salt Lake City was thrilled with the idea of the play when I told him about it. He has asked several times how it is going. As we know, theater is a risky business, but also one of the most powerful tools that exists for cultural transformation. While this story will be in a Mormon setting, I intend for it to be a play that can have significant general appeal. The father in the story is on the fast track to becoming both a general authority and an important figure in Washington. It is he, more than the mother, who takes a huge step forward at the end. Coming back from New York late at night on the plane, I closed my eyes and continued working on the play. Hearing some dialogue that sent tears down my cheeks. Just now I checked the suicide link on the Affirmation website and read an article called The Politics of Silence. I am willing again to assist in breaking the silence. I have already scheduled a family trip to Utah in August. I would be able to commit that at that time, I would have a script ready to read to a group. You have already been more than generous, Bruce, to me and to my children, and I am forever grateful. I know you are besieged by people needing both you and your money, but I also know that you and I are partners in something very important. Should this suggestion interest you, I will work with any requirements you might have. If I should go through your foundation, let me know how to proceed. All love to you, Bruce. I am glad you are here to bless the planet, Carol Lynn.
Bruce immediately wrote Carolyn back and said, done, you've got the funding, do it. So Jerry, you were here when she came in August and did that initial, you were there, did that initial reading of Facing East. What was that like?
So there were about 6 of us in the audience, Bruce and myself and 4 other people. And Carolyn sat in a chair and she read all 3 roles. The play was overwritten, it was a big mess. It was very dramatic. She was trying to do everything at once. It was in need of a lot of work, but it was also, we didn't breathe for about 70 minutes. It was sacred. We all knew that something, maybe it was just us in the room that got to share this moment, but we knew it was something transcendent happening, and I felt like we had to pursue the play in some way at that point. I had only had emails and ideas sent to me before then. It was the first time that I'd heard who these characters were and heard them speak. So immediately after that moment we shared, I talked to Bruce and I talked to Carolyn and I said, let's really workshop the play. Let's develop it and see if this experience is repeatable. Not that we were trying to repeat it, but what was the power the play actually held. So at that time, the Utah Pride Center hosted an event called Winter Pride. So there were events in late January, early February. So this is August. So she wrote Bruce in May of 2005. She read it for us in August of 2005. And by the first week of February of 2006, we were hosting a public reading for Winter Pride. And we did the reading for about 200 people. And it was exactly the same experience. The script was tighter and cleaner, but this time we had a cast of 3 wonderful actors to read the piece so that Carolyn could just sit and really listen to it with an audience and really determine what needed to be fully the writer and determine what needed to happen next. And immediately after that, I committed to produce the play. And one of those actors is here, Jay Perry here on the front row. He played Marcus, the young boyfriend, in that reading. And he'd only done 1 play with us, and he was the first person I called and said, I actually think I said that we were gonna build this around you. And just a little side note, in October, it's been 20 years, I'll out Jay. He was 30 at the time, and now he'll be 50, and he'll be playing Alex, the father, in the production in the fall. He keeps thinking he's not old enough to play the father of an adult Mormon male, but at 50, if he were Mormon, he'd have like 46 grandchildren. Anyway, it was beyond what we could have hoped for. And frankly, our entire journey with the play, it premiered in November of 2006. Do you want me just to continue with this here?
Yeah, maybe I want to invite Jay up in a moment to share what it was like that night. What was it like? What was the electricity in the room? What was the feeling in the room as the play is being produced? And you've got Carolyn there and Bruce there. And
well, it was pretty phenomenal because Carolyn was at every performance of this first run. We thought we were just going to do this quick 10-day run in a 200-seat theater, and that would be it. And it was a perfect time. Carolyn had self-published her book, No More Goodbyes, to coincide with the production. We had a table in the lobby where she sold copies of all of her books, and she was at every performance. And the tickets sold out pretty quickly, and we don't really draw an LDS audience, but we did with that show. And when I learned the power of that play, when I really understood the power of it was that we were having large LDS families come to performances on Sundays. That told us how important it was to these folks. And it wasn't just that they were coming to a play. Gay men and women were coming with their families, large families. It wasn't just a few, it was the majority of each audience. And usually, after a performance, you want to give patrons the opportunity to kind of gather themselves, if it's a drama, chat about the play, and depart on their own with some gentle nudging so we can get our work done. And we learned immediately that there was no possibility of nudging. We needed to give people as much time as possible because they were being ministered to and they were being healed. And I've never seen anything like this at any theater event in my life. I've been working in the theater for over 30 years. Families would gather in the theater, in the lobby, outside on the sidewalk, and circle up and pray together. And we could literally see people setting aside their differences in real time, all because of what Carolyn had written and shared with him. And I will be honest, the press was not super kind to the production initially in Salt Lake City. People questioned cynically the strength of the play as a play. And I fought back on that because the only thing that you need to create theater is one person telling a story and the other person listening to it. And we were presenting a different type of theater. If you haven't seen it or read it, it comes in at an 8, and it goes up from there. It is intense. It is fraught with very high stakes, life and death stakes. But it was incredible to watch not only people experience the play, but like Connell talks about this individual moment that he shared initially with Carolyn, or when Bruce first met her and she spent 2 hours with him. Anybody who wanted to talk to Carolyn about their experience, she gave them all the time they needed.
And can I play a clip where she talks about being there? And then I'd like to leave a little time for Jay to come up. Let's see. The session ends at 11:55. I want to be sure to leave time for Q&A at the end as well. Carolyn.
Opening night, of course, was so exciting. Every seat taken. Huge enthusiasm. Despite any flaws of mine or of the actors, the play worked very well. I sat by Bruce, and halfway through he leaned over and said to me, "This is the best money I have ever spent." He was in tears through much of it. Next morning he called Jerry to talk about the next steps for the play. Subsequently, Jerry and I drove to Orem to Bruce's mansion to have lunch and to discuss the future of Facing East. Jerry and I had already agreed that ideally the next step would be to try for an off-Broadway production, and certainly a San Francisco engagement. Bruce was very much on board with all of this. Having money is an awesome thing. You want something done, you do it. Very, very exciting. I had no time at all in Salt Lake to sit around in the hotel room and read a novel. Went to every performance. So thrilled to see people filing in, filling every seat, clearly there for their own personal and important reasons. Young gay people in alternative dress, elderly people in wheelchairs, middle-aged couples in suits and Sunday dresses, all with such hunger to be there. Perhaps some usual theater goers just out for an evening, but the huge majority of them clearly people on a mission, having heard that something remarkable was going on, an event that focused on something in their lives that was urgent.
Jay, you were there. You were playing Marcus. Can you, I didn't know Jay was going to be here. It's just a wonderful surprise. Can you come up and share just briefly what it was like for you to be on that stage playing Marcus, the boyfriend of this young gay man who's just committed suicide, and seeing the audience reaction to this play?
Thank you for having me up here, and I'm very honored to be here. Yeah, so this play was the seminal experience of my professional and personal and spiritual life, and continues to be that today. I'll go back just a little bit because my journey to the play, I think, is also important. When I was in high school, I was sort of bitten by the theater bug at that time, and you know, I went to a school that very much encouraged, you know, it was a preparatory school, and encouraged us to have a good sense by our junior year of what we were going to do in college. And so I met with my counselor, and we had a conversation. And she said, "What's important to you? What's meaningful? And how do you think you want to spend your life?" And I didn't know quite yet what it was, but I knew that I wanted to try to do something that would be helpful. I wanted to be useful. And so I thought about some different things. I thought about maybe psychology, or even at that time was considering possibly even the priesthood. I was going to a Catholic school at that time. I went to church. And as I got through my senior year and continued on my journey as you know, just enjoying being in the theater, that continued to be the thing that I thought I might continue to want to do. And I remember on my closing night of my big high school musical, I looked up into the lights, and I had this feeling, this is how I'm going to do that thing that I want to do, to be useful. And it wasn't, I had some wonderful experiences in college. I went to the University of Utah here, the actor training program. Had some great experiences here, working with some wonderful professors. One of them just walked into the room, Ann Decker. And I had some great experiences on stages in Salt Lake City, working with Plan B Theater Company. And when I read this play, I was immediately struck by the intensity of it. And in that very first reading that we had in front of an audience, I had a really strong sense, like we all did, that this was a play that wasn't just a play. This was something much bigger than that, and it would be that. And thanks to the people in the bottom right of your screen here, Bruce Bastian and Jerry Rapier and Lynn Pearson, I had the rare opportunity that many actors never get to be able to do something that goes so far beyond their own ambitions as an actor. I had the opportunity to do something that was useful, truly, that really, really helped people. And that experience of being on stage here in Salt Lake for 2 sold-out performances, 2 sold-out runs, and then that wonderful gift that Bruce gave us all of being able to take the show off Broadway and then to San Francisco I remember getting to the end of that and having a conversation with my mother, and I said, right, if I never get to do anything else on a stage, at least I got to do that.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to play now what Carolyn wrote in her, what she said about facing east. Again, this is just 2 weeks ago.
So it's been, was such an astonishing privilege to be able to be a large part of something so important. And to know that that is having a revival now and occasionally is performed somewhere else is thrilling, because, you know, we're still not where we need to be, but we're so much better than we were a decade ago, 15 years ago.
One other entry that she wrote about being a facing east. Sorry, I played those out of order. Here we go. Okay, never mind, I did play it. Thank you, Carolyn. Colin and I were joking that, of course, Carolyn was a drama queen in every good sense of the word. She was an actress, a playwright, a dramaticist. Of course that she would choose to make her exit from the play, from the stage of this life, the night before Sunstone would begin last night. And we were saying we were sad that Carolyn couldn't be with us. She couldn't travel, but now I think she decided she was going to be here with us. And she knew this session was happening. She was planning on watching it. I think she's watching it right here with us. And as she just mentioned, we're not where we need to be yet, but we're so much farther along than where we were 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And so much of that is due to this work and other works of the great Carolyn Pearson. Can we just give an applause for Carolyn? We have time now for Q&A. Jay, can I ask you to take the microphone around and share it with people? If you'll be very brief in your, please ask the question in the form of a question. And so that everybody who would like to ask a question has an opportunity to do so. And I also want to remind you that at 1:20 today, there will be a lunchtime impromptu session where people can come and share their thoughts and memories of Carolyn Pearson. So that would be the great time to do that. So questions? Questions or comments? Well, if no one has questions, we'll open it up to comments. Bob?
While you're thinking, let me just say, when we were in the 17th century, there was a man named Samuel Pepys who kept a diary. As we look back, we can say so much about what happened in the 17th century that was not evident anyplace else except through Pepys' diary. I think these volumes will be a witness to the future of what the past was like for something so important as what we do in relation to our LGBT brothers and sisters. I, as director of Mormon Studies at Graduate Theological Union, I had the opportunity of creating with my colleagues the Radiant Mormonism Award. And we gave that award to Carolyn a couple of years ago. It was a wonderful opportunity to celebrate her radiance. And it is through the diaries that are being published that radiance will be available to future generations.
Thank you, Bob. And I should just add really quick, when I was with her 2 weeks ago, she was very anxious. She says, are people reading my diaries? Are people reading my diaries? And I said, we're doing everything we can to get the word out about them. But it was clear to me, it was very important to her that people know her story and read these diaries. So that's perfect. Okay, yes, here in the front. Sid.
So Barbara, when you were there with her 2 weeks ago, how did she seem? Did she seem frail? She seems quite alert, actually. Was that?
Yeah, so her children had asked me not to talk about her health, and so I honored that. Publicly, I did not talk about it. But she had been battling uterine cancer for 2 years. And so as I've been working with her over the past 2 years, when I first started, she was very strong. She came to us in 2024, very strong and working on this project. And I can say that all 4 volumes, she went through and finished them. So we didn't have to finish anything off that she wasn't able to finish. She did it. So what is in these diaries is what she wanted in them as she wanted in them. And she approved the photos we use that are in them and so forth. So, but slowly I saw a gradual decline over the last 2 years. And her children let me know that she was in the final stages of battling cancer a few months ago. But as only Lynn Pearson could do, she would get up though, and I would say, do you feel up to reading some entries from your diaries? And she said, yes. And then she would read them, and you could see how she's stronger as she's reading her entries. She's the consummate, I don't want to say actor, she wasn't active, but the consummate performer, public speaker, and everything. And I knew it was the last time I was going to see her. I went to be with her to get these recordings in preparation for this session. And also, she signed 3 boxes full of her books. So these are the last copies of her books that she would ever sign again. She was frail. And I said, just all you need to do is write Lynn Pearson. Don't worry about writing anything else. But she insisted every book she wrote with love, Lynn Pearson, and that's what she was all about. She was all about love, and she writes about that in her diaries, how she wants to embody love. So.
She called me about 2.5 weeks ago, and then didn't remember that she had called me, and she kept asking me, why didn't you call me? And I was like, Carolyn, no, you called me.
Yeah.
We had a really lovely conversation, although I could tell she was not doing well. And I hung up the phone and burst into tears because I thought, this is the last time I'll ever get to talk to her. And I just knew it, and it just bugged me. So I tried to call her a week later, and no one picked up the phone. I knew she had a nurse's aide who generally would answer if she could, but yeah, so that was it.
Okay, other questions or comments? Here in the second row.
First I was going to ask how many books there will be, but when will the next ones come out?
Yeah, so the first 2 are available right now. Volume 3 is at press, and so you can pre-order it right now, and Volume 4 will come out before Facing East. It will come out in October. And so we're so excited. I've been talking with Jerry about the possibility, just as Carolyn was selling her books at the first run of Facing East, we will have her books available there for people to purchase before and after the revival of Facing East. Jerry, do you want to just talk about that?
Yeah, the show runs
Well, sorry, could you talk about why you decided to do this revival?
Yes. So Carolyn and I have been talking about it for on and off for about the last 5 years when the timing would be right. And the 20th anniversary seemed the perfect time. And also, to be honest, things have gotten better in some ways, but worse in others. In the first quarter of this year, more than 500 anti-LGBTQ bills were presented in all 50 states to state legislatures. We're ahead and we're behind. And as I thought, are we gonna do this as a period piece? Is it gonna feel dated? No, it doesn't feel dated. Alex's journey, the father that Jay now plays, he's put in this position of publicly representing the LDS Church and the pressure that brings in a culture of war. And of course, Caroline wrote this 20 years ago, but it feels like it was written about what's happening here and now. She was very healthy when we made the choice to do it. When I knew she was not doing great is that girl is the queen of self-promotion. Let me just say, she can promote anything to anyone, she can sell anything to anyone, she could. And when we started talking about seriously what it took for her to participate in this production, even though she couldn't travel, about her availability for press and such, she just said, I don't think I can do it. And that was the indication to me, because there's nothing that mattered more to her than to be able to share the work with other people. She was able to do one interview with the Salt Lake Tribune.
On Mormon Land, on their Mormon Land podcast.
No, for Facing East.
Oh, separate
They
one.
did the interview really early. So that interview will be published in October. Very prescient that Palak, the writer, talked to her very early.
Fantastic.
But we have a history. We do all new work by local playwrights, and Carolyn counts because she was born in Gusher, Utah. That's BYU. And over our 36-year history, we have produced a lot of world premieres written by former Mormons about their experience with the intersection of faith and sexuality. Carolyn is the only playwright that has addressed those issues that remained LDS that we've produced. And to be honest, the play changed our company in every possible way. It wasn't just that Bruce supported the commission. When he asked us what the next steps would be, Carolyn and I said, let's go to New York. And he said, okay. And she did say, she's intimated on the recording, she's like, but we have to do it in San Francisco too. And Bruce said, okay. And then he handed me a check for $250,000.
Wow. And that's when Carolyn says, boy, it's wonderful to have money.
Because he really believed in her ability to say things, and you all know this, she could say things in settings and to people within the faith that no one else could.
Thank you, Jerry. Other questions? Judy Busk in the back there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't have my glasses on. You look like my friend Judy.
For the mic for Judy.
Sorry.
Okay.
She's a beautiful woman.
Thank you, but I'm Judy. This is Judy speaking. Beautiful Judy. I apologize for coming in late. I get up late, and so I'm just reading in the paper today of this memorial for Carolyn, and I wish that I had been here. And so I only know Jerry on that panel. So my question is this. I would love to know your response to Carolyn's influence on the church. I find it so absolutely amazing. She was able to stay active in the church with all that she went through. And I'd like to know if you really feel if she has made the impact we all want her to have made in the church, because I think it's very important. And now with Dallin Oaks as the president, who is a very bright, well-educated man who has a gay member in his own family, if you feel like Carolyn's words, her influence, her ability to stay in the Mormon church with all that she's done and said, if you think it's even possible.
That's a great question, and I'll just start real quick and then invite other comments. But she does write quite a bit. She was friends with Stella Oaks, Dallin H. Oaks' mother, who she describes as a feminist and supporter of the ERA. So that's in the diaries. And then she writes a lot of letters to Dallin Oaks, and he writes back. So as far as the question of, how much influence has she had on the LDS Church, let's ask everybody to comment. But Bob is a former bishop and a devout member of the LDS Church. Do you want to comment on your thoughts on that?
Sure. Carolyn and I stayed very close the last 3 decades because we lived relatively close to one another in the Bay Area. So we had lots of conversations during Proposition 8 and during the unfortunate policy during 2015 about parents and LGBTQ. She, going back what Jerry said, she she published her books, and she sent, for example, she sent copies of polygamy, Ghost of Polygamy Past, and sent it to all of the general authorities as well. And we had a conversation about that, and I said, what you remind me of Melville, when he wrote Moby Dick, he wrote to his friend Hawthorne and said, I've just written a very wicked book, and I feel as spotless as the lamb. I feel as spotless as a lamb. So she had that sense of, but her stake president called her his fourth counselor. She was able to have that kind of a conversation at almost every level. I think very few people do. But a person of both faith and courage, and those people are rare.
As a queer historian, with the benefit of deep insight, hindsight, I cite Goodbye, I Love You as the most important event that happened in the history of homosexuality and Mormonism, because prior to that, in the depths of the AIDS epidemic, there was so much homophobia being directed towards the queer community. And the LDS Church was fully on board with that, saying horrific things, doing horrific things. And this book came out, and it turned the dialogue 180 degrees from being almost monolithically homophobic to being, let's talk about compassion, let's talk about love and healing. And she inspired that directly and profoundly. And so that, to me, there's Mormonism before Goodbye, I Love You, and then Mormonism after. Yeah, profound change. On society, not just Mormonism, but American society.
That's right. My take on this question, it's a great question. I don't think she changed the institutional church much, but she sure changed hearts of thousands of church members, and not just, as Connell said, not just church, Americans. When Goodbye, I Love You came out, it was in the midst of an AIDS crisis, and it changed the way Americans, not just Mormons, looked at gay people and the AIDS crisis itself. So I'm an example of one, Connell's an example of one, Bob's an example of one, and Jerry, I'm not sure if you grew up LDS or not, but we're examples of individual church members whose hearts were changed, and the biggest change, I think, is the acceptance at the grassroots level among Latter-day Saints of our queer loved ones. I'm the mother of a gay son now, proud mother of a gay son now. I have so many LGBT friends and family members. I love them dearly, and I see the difference her work has made in individual lives. Tomorrow I'm chairing a session with Eli McCann and Skylar Westerdahl, two gay men who are married, legally married now, that's legal, and raising a beautiful little child, and they're happy to live in Salt Lake City, and they are supported and loved. And just the juxtaposition between working on this session and then preparing for tomorrow's session, I can really see the change. So yes, I think that change maybe it's where it matters most. It's with the individual members. Jerry, do you want to add?
Yeah, I did grow up LDS, but not in a traditional sense. I was adopted into an LDS family when I was 8 years old. And so I was never really fully in the thing. I did go on a mission, and my experience with a mission was, there's a lot more out there than this one thing. So I left, I had my name removed from there because of the church in 1998. So my experience with Mormonism and Carol Lynn was very different because she didn't talk to me about it like an insider. I was kind of the role gay men play a lot with their Mormon female friends. It's a little naughty to tell me the truth, you know? So she would say things like, I'll keep saying stuff until somebody shuts me up. And nobody ever did. Because she had this way of making sure that you knew she was speaking to you with love, but also you didn't want to mess with her. I mean, she was tough as nails and the most gentle kind of person you can imagine, all wrapped into one thing. And I'm so far removed from the church that I don't know who, I guess Barbara, folks like you are the next Carolyn's. Like who are those? There was one. And it feels like maybe there's many, maybe not with as high of a stature, but maybe fewer with a little bit less stature, not fewer, but more with lesser stature is actually more powerful. My mother passed away when she was 59, so it's been quite a while now. She was a huge Lynn Pearson fan, but she was, at that time, it was kind of something she had to keep to herself, because it was the feminism that mattered to her. And she couldn't talk about that with anyone. And what I see now with my mother-in-law and with my other in-laws and my husband's sisters, that there's a lot more freedom to speak your own truth. Anyway, yeah.
I think that Carolyn knew what Lowell Benyon said, if you really want to change the church, you can't leave it, you have to stay inside. And she made that commitment. And I would say, has she changed the church? And I would say, not yet. But, one of her, Gloria and I had the privilege of teaching junior Sunday school a couple of years ago, and I'll Walk With You, one of her beautiful things. So a younger generation learning that very basic Christian principle, I will walk with you. Someone will read that, someone will pick up this book in the future, as we pick up books written in the past, and it will change hearts and lives.
I want to put in a plug for her diaries. This is volume 1 that covers 1956 to 1990. Everything you wanted to know about how Goodbye, I Love You came about is in here. She spills all the tea, which is like, as a historian, I'm like, oh my gosh, she goes there. And one particular example, so in 1977, Barbara B. Smith was the general president of the Relief Society, and she made horrible comments in public about the gay community, and she was in praise of Anita Bryant, who was coming to Salt Lake to perform at the state fair. And I have never forgiven Barbara B. Smith for those horrible things that she said about me and my people. And Carolyn, 9 years later, Carolyn sent a manuscript of Goodbye, I Love You to her, to Barbara, for Barbara to read. Barbara loved it, and it helped her out a lot. But, she tells Carolyn, don't publish it now, wait for a few years, delay it. People aren't ready for it yet, So to get insights, historical insights like that is extraordinary and exciting. My copy, I know it's horrible for people to do this, but I have, the bent over pages so that I remember where all the good stuff is. Get copies, get it, please.
And I'll just say a word about volume 4, where I'm quite a bit in it, and as I'm reading, I said, I said that? Is she recording?
Oops.
So, really quick, I also wanted, the purpose of this session was to, again, on the anniversary of these 2 great works of hers, honor that. But her other platform, if you will, was women's, raising the status of women. And that comes out quite a bit. I was just with Laurel Thatcher Ulrich until last night. I flew home. I'm working on her biography. And Laurel was reading, I brought her a copy, and she was reading, and she was astounded about things she was reading about women. And speaking of Barbara B. Smith, Laurel said she always assumed that Barbara B. Smith, the General Relief Society president, went along with Spencer W. Kimball and church leaders as they're killing the ERA, but she was astounded to find out that Barbara B. Smith was appalled by what was happening and was in tears of how she was just made powerless. So anyways, that's just another theme about feminism that is all throughout these diaries as well. We have time for one more question. Yes?
How do we get tickets to the,
Oh,
we get tickets to the show?
Yes, please talk about that, Jerry.
So, Facing East runs October 22nd through November 8th in the Studio Theater at the Rose Wagner Performing Arts Center, and tickets are available through Artix or on our website, Plan B Theater, spelled RE.org. They're available now. Yeah, it's a small theater and it's selling well, so shameless plug, you should buy them right now. Look at how you have that phone in your hand, yes! There's only 44 seats per performance, and when you experience the play, you'll understand why that size is key.
Jerry, if they sell out, with all this publicity with Carolyn's passing and all these articles being written about her now in this play, is it possible to do a longer run, or do we need to grab things today?
We'll grab them so we can extend.
Right, but
we are planning on a potential week-long extension.
okay, we will hope for that. Currently, it's scheduled for 2.5 weeks.
For 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yes.
Okay, great. We're going to hope for that. And so all of you, go see Facing East and tell your friends about Facing East as well. In conclusion, and I'm going to cry again, sorry. I hadn't finished reading Volume 4 when I was with Carolyn 2 weeks ago. I wish I had finished it, but 2 nights before she died, I was looking at Volume 4 and I did read to the end, and I came across her last entry. And I was so moved by it, I called her because I wanted to read it with her and share it with her. And her son, Aaron, was by her bedside. And so I was on speakerphone and I read the last entry in Volume 4. And I was in tears and she was in tears. And her son, Aaron, I believe was in tears. He was silent and quiet. And then I said goodbye on the phone, and that was the last time I spoke with her. But I wanted to share with all of you this poem because she wrote it for all of us. And of course, she closes her 4-volume diaries with a poem. And the poem is titled, "To Those Who Have Loved Me." When I am gone, let me lie in state in your heart for a day or 2 or more. Then plant me deep in the soil of your best work and let me help toward harvest. Thank you, everyone. If you're interested in getting these last signed copies of Lynn Pearson's books, they're available at the back of the room. They're for sale. They'll be at Signature's table as well, and then also Benchmark Books has copies, so please support your local booksellers. Thank you.
I want